latest data shows that only 6% of Plan 2 student loan holders are actually paying off any part of their debt. So they're just touching the interest. They're not actually paying off the core part of their debt. And when you factor that in with housing costs, the general cost of living, it is causing this rise in younger people to opt out of their workplace pensions.
Now, young savers laden with student debt are abandoning their pensions. The Department for Work and Pensions says an increasing number of 22 to 29-year-olds are opting out of workplace pensions. We can talk about this with Megan Harwood Baynes, senior money reporter for The Times and very much friend of the show. Hello, Megan. How are you?
Hi, good, thanks.
Good. Tell us about why student debt could trigger a pensions crisis.
So for many young people, they are having extreme pressure on their finances. So latest data shows that only 6% of Plan 2 student loan holders are actually paying off any part of their debt. So they're just touching the interest. They're not actually paying off the core part of their debt. And when you factor that in with housing costs, the general cost of living, it is causing this rise in younger people to opt out of their workplace pensions. So it's gone up from 6.5% to 9.3%. And that doesn't sound like a lot of people not paying into their pension, but it is potentially millions of young people. And when you sort of look down the line, we are looking down the barrel of a retirement crisis, and the first years when you start saving can often have the biggest benefit because of compound interest. You know, you've got 40 years to save that money.
I can completely understand why you would try and slim down your outgoings when you find yourself on the receiving end of so much financial pressure as a young person. How do you turn that around?
It is tricky, and trying to explain to younger people the benefits of saving into a pension, you can often see their eyes glaze over and they think, well, you know, the price of a flat share in London is best part of £900 these days. So actually I need that £100 that would be going into my pension pot more urgently to pay for the immediate costs. I think it's trying to explain to people that actually the value of that money, it's not £100 now is worth £100 when you're 60. £100 now could be worth £500 by the time you turn 60. And encouraging people to start saving earlier and not rely on that money. So if as soon as you start a job, you opt into the pension fund and you start paying into it, you've never really had that money in your paycheck. And I do think there is an element of you sort of learn to live without it, but it becomes harder when you haven't paid into a pension and then thinking, well, next month I'll do it. Oh no, I've got to pay for the car to be MOT'd, so I'll do it next month. And then you sort of kick the can down the road.
And also, we do tend to send out the message that it's never too late to start investing. So you can understand if you're a young person, you're thinking, OK, well, last week you said if I was a 45-year-old woman, I'd still be fine if I started investing then. You know, why kind of pick on me as a young person to do more stuff again?
I completely understand. And I've had very similar conversations with my friends who have said, you know, one of them said to me, well, what's the difference between me sorting my pension in my early 30s versus, you know, the end of my 30s? And I was there like, well, potentially £100,000 if you know, really crunch the numbers. I mean, just adding a very small amount to your pension pot. So some of the numbers that were run, the average salary for a 22 to 29-year-old is £31,719. If you increase your pension contributions by 1%, so that's about £7 a week, by the time you hit retirement, you could have 81,600 extra pounds in your pension pot. So that's a significant amount. And I think most of us would think, well, £7 a week, that's, you know, I don't want to play into the stereotype of that's just a coffee, but that is just a coffee. I think most of us could probably do without that extra £7.
Who was it who said that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world? Is that actually a true thing that somebody once said that?
I think that is probably something I have said at various points because I do think it is magic, and I have seen it with my own pension pots, you know, very small amounts that I put aside in my early 20s and then forgot about, and then I've gone back to reclaim and I've had that moment of, oh, actually that's not as bad. It could have been better, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, we wish the young people luck in all of these choices they're making, because they definitely are having it very tough at the moment. Can we talk about the retirement plans for civil servants? Now, you've been doing some really superb journalism work on this. Tell us what the problems are.
So there is some very serious problems going on with civil service pensions. So the scheme was previously run by a company called MyCSP. It was then taken over by a different company called Capita in December last year. When Capita inherited the scheme, there was a significant backlog of cases, about 86,000, huge IT issues. When they tried to transfer stuff between the systems, lots of data got corrupted. But what this has really translated to is thousands of retired civil servants just haven't been paid, and families of bereaved families who are waiting on pension payments also haven't been paid for up to 16 months. And I mean, I don't know about you, but if I couldn't survive retirement without getting a pension payment. So for many of them, they're having to dip into savings, they're having to rely on family, or they're having to take out hardship loans that the government is now offering. And it has been long enough now that questions are fairly being asked of, well, when is this going to be fixed? And, when are Capita going to sort of step up and, take control of what is happening?
And there are also some really shocking examples of poor customer service. So when people have tried to access their funds or get a very simple printout of what they can expect and when, they've basically been told, oh, I'm not sure that that's going to be possible, try calling again, and then somebody calls again, they're waiting 3 hours for the phone to be answered.
I've spoken to people who they retired, back at the start of the year, and they still haven't been sent the paperwork to say, this is what your lump sum will be and this is the amount you're going to get this month. And it makes it very difficult for them to know what might be coming or even just plan for their future.
We've had quite a few texts about this, actually. Alistair says, my wife passed away at the end of October. I'm still waiting for my widower's civil service pension, despite contacting them 3 times and being prioritised. Fortunately, I have my own one already, so it's an addition rather than a necessity, but it is ridiculous nonetheless. Well, our sympathies to you, Alistair, because also when you are grieving, to be met by obfuscation and ignorance and difficulty on the other end of the phone, it just compounds your misery, doesn't it? It really shouldn't be happening.
I always think it's a cruel irony that at the lowest point in your life you are faced with the most paperwork, just from all corners, and then trying to sort out pensions like this. I mean, some of the saddest cases I spoke to were people who were waiting on bereavement payments. So I spoke to one woman whose dad died. He lived abroad in Japan, where he sort of was working in his later years, and he died of malnutrition because he wasn't able to get his pension payments, so he was surviving on the very basics already. And she can't get his ashes back because without his pension payment she can't pay the cremation fees. And she just said, I just want my dad home so I can scatter his ashes on our favourite beach and say goodbye. And that's been 16 months.
And that's money owed to the family.
Yeah, and it was owed to him. Had he got that money, potentially he might still be alive.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure after discussing it here, you will have even more incoming. So, and you welcome that.
Yes, I very much do. Yes,
yeah. Thank you very much indeed, Megan. It's always lovely to see you on the programme. Can people just search your byline and they'll find the right email address?
They'll find the right email address, and please do reach out.
Lovely.